right, happy Monday. Yes, the long, horrible, horrific Obama nightmare is now coming to an end, and it couldn't happen soon enough. I think enough damage has been done to the country in the interim, wouldn't you say? Anyway, our toll-free telephone number, 800-941-SEAN, if you want to be a part of the program. A lot on our plate today, not the least of which is something that we're going to break here on this program. And I want to just give you a little bit of what you're going to hear later. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, they have found this D.C., quote, anti-fascist coalition and what they're planning to do at the Trump inauguration. To me, after watching the first and what's going to be a series of videos coming out this week, are planning acts of terrorism on people, going to balls, and I want you to listen very closely, and I'll explain out of them.
Yeah, if you had a freaking pint of butyric acid, I don't care how big the building is, it's closed and it's staying closed for a while.
And this stuff is, like, it's very efficient. It's very, very smelly. It lasts a long time, and a little of it goes a long way.
I know, I'm trying to think through how to get all the sprinklers throughout at once. There's usually a piece of, like, fusible metal or a piece of glass in the liquid and it'll blow.
This is undercover video of potential criminal acts being planned. These organizers and activists are talking about setting off butyric acid into the ventilation system and setting off fire alarm sprinklers at a Trump inaugural ball later this week. What you're about to see is part one of our hidden camera investigation into the groups and organizations that seek to cause havoc and violence at the Trump inauguration in Washington, D.C.
I, Ronald Reagan.
I, George Herbert Walker Bush.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
Please lock the doors. Please lock the doors. Lock him, lock him, lock him. Don't let them in.
Hey, I just want to say one thing to the person on the phone.
Can you please move
Bob
on
Kramer
my way?
sends his regards.
The next 4 years, we are going to fight Trump and everything he stands for with no quarter asked, no quarter given, no mercy of any kind.
Throw them all under the bus. I mean, just fuck it up. I like the idea of the goal being that they have to pull the inauguration inside.
Be prepared to help make the inauguration a giant cluster fund.
Shortly after the election, we started getting tips that radical groups were planning to derail President-elect Trump's inauguration, perhaps even trying to shut down the city of Washington, D.C. Various groups, some old, some new, have gathered together under the Disrupt J20 umbrella. Progress Unity Fund, Workers' World Party, Americans Take Action, Answer Coalition, and many more. Today's investigation focuses on these guys from the D.C. Anti-Fascist Coalition.
The message has to be that, we do not recognize the city government either. If you try to close us down, we will look for your house, we will burn it, we will physically fight the police if they try to clear one of our places. We will go to war, and you will lose.
Early on, one of our journalists was sent an email inviting him to a planning meeting. The discussion centered around disrupting the Deplorable, a big pro-Trump inaugural ball scheduled the night before the inauguration.
I mean, it would be really interesting if we could stop them from having this war going on. Yeah.
It was at this meeting where we met Scott Green, Luke Kuhn, and Colin Dunn. They were very gung-ho and clearly well-versed in the dark arts of sabotage.
We already know what we're all there for, so we won't be... Okay, so we don't have to use the word deplorable at all. Yeah. And things like that. So just in case there are yahoos in there...
Through emails, another meeting was set up at the infamous Comet Ping Pong Pizza Restaurant in Northwest Washington, D.C.
I was thinking of things that would ruin the evening, ruin their outfits, or otherwise make it impossible to continue with their plans, make sure they get nothing accomplished.
The Deplorable is being held here at the National Press Club in downtown Washington, D.C. The plan: set off butyric acid stink bombs, forcing everyone to evacuate the premises.
Yeah, if you had a freaking pint of butyric acid, I don't care how big the building is, it's closed and it's staying closed for a while.
And this stuff is like, it's very efficient. It's very, very smelly. It lasts a long time, and a little of it goes a long way.
We repeated the original plan. We could use more of that same stuff, and I can break the cans with with a plunger, some stiff rubber bands, and a safety pin thing. So all you got to do is pull the pin and press the plunger, and the whole can discharges.
This is the way we have to brainstorm and think, what can we do that will accomplish the mission. So that is bad enough. That stuff is nasty enough that it will spread. It will spread.
It will get into the HVAC system and hit the whole building.
The best possible location to get to it is the air intake grill for the entire HVAC.
Yeah. The actions could constitute a violation of anti-terrorism laws, a felony with a possible 5-year prison sentence and a significant fine. As the meeting continued, Colin Dunn and Scott Green made a plan to scout the location where the deplorable is being held.
You want a case of place?
I can do that.
I mean, you want to do it together?
Say, it may work better with two people. That way it's not one person's memory saying, here's where everything is.
Yeah.
There was also talk about setting off the fire alarm sprinklers in the building. Plan B, if the stink bomb effort failed.
I know, I'm trying to think through how to get all the sprinklers up at once. There's usually a piece of like fusible metal or a piece of glass and a liquid in it that'll blow. I need to research and make sure that we can actually get them to all trigger if we trigger one. Yeah. And the added benefit, everybody as they walk outside will get freezing cold.
Yes, yes.
A few days later, our journalist received this email from Scott Green. Quote, "The reconnaissance went pretty well, and we left with the confidence that we can accomplish our objective with no negative consequences for our side, nor any collateral damage. We determined that the risks posed by these potential crimes were of such a magnitude that we decided to alert law enforcement. Last week, our journalist met with agents from the FBI, the Secret Service, and the D.C. Metro Police to report our findings.
We found that both the Disrupt J20 and the DC Anti-Fascist Coalition were plotting to shut down some of the inaugural balls that were occurring, using butyric acid, shutting off sprinkler systems. So we're thankful that the FBI and the task force is looking into this, and we hope that there will be charges brought soon.
Just to be clear, we don't have a problem with people protesting peacefully or voicing their First Amendment rights. That's protected by the Constitution. But in this case, Disrupt J20 says openly that their plan is to shut down the inauguration. The question is, where do these people draw the line? Do these individuals and groups have any problem with what we're reporting here? Stay tuned, because next we go deeper and deeper into the dangerous world of Disrupt J20, and we find out just who is behind all of it.
Now, Project Veritas went undercover, and Project Veritas, strikes again. This group is called Disrupt J20. It's under that umbrella, if you will. And I know it's difficult to hear. Let me read some of the transcript of this. You have one guy saying, if you buy a pint of butyric acid, I don't know how big the building is, but that building's closing. In other words, they want to do this at one of the balls. Another guy says, and this stuff is so efficient, meaning the acid, it's very smelly, it lasts a long time, a little bit goes a long way. Then a third guy says, well, I'm trying to think how to get all those sprinklers, the fire sprinklers, to go off all at once. And they say that there's usually a piece of, like, fusible metal or a piece of glass with liquid in it that will, quote, blow. Another guy, the first guy, says the message has to be, we do not recognize the city government either. You try to close us down, we'll look for your house. We'll burn it. We will physically fight the police if they try to steal one of our places. We will go to war and you will lose. Second guy says, I was thinking of things that would ruin their evening, ruin their outfits, or otherwise make it impossible to continue with their plan so they get nothing accomplished. And the first guy again, you could do a repeat of the original plan. If you order the same stuff, then I can rig the cans where you take with a plunger and rubber bands and a safety pin, and all you have to do is pull the pin and press the plunger, and the whole can discharges. Whole can of what? Third guy says, we have to brainstorm on what we can do. That will accomplish the mission. I think. So that is bad enough. This stuff is nasty enough that it will seep, it will spread. You don't think that's a little chilling? I think it's a little bit chilling. And so Project Veritas invited by email to this D.C. anti-fascist coalition meeting. Now, to their credit, they saw the threat of terrorism, and from what I understand, the tapes they'll be releasing tomorrow are even worse than what we heard today. And they went to see the FBI and the CIA and the Secret Service and the D.C. Metro Police, and they went to see all these people. And apparently there was great appreciation for what they did and the fact that they shared it with them. You know, look, I've known John Lewis, for example. My years in Atlanta taught me a lot. First of all, I love Atlanta. I love the South. And one of the best experiences in my life as an American was living, born and raised in Long Island, New York, living 5 years in Rhode Island and New England during the Bird years, Larry Bird years playing for the Celtics, which were the best years to be there. I lived 5 years in Santa Barbara out in California. So I got my radio start in 86-7. And then I lived 2 years in Alabama in Huntsville and 4 years in Atlanta. My 4 years in Atlanta were just some of the best years of my life. That's where I also started doing CNN, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, as part of my experience there, Atlanta is the hub and remains the hub of all these civil rights icons, many of which I got to know. I became best friends with Reverend Hosea Williams, one of the funniest guys I've ever met. He since has passed away, and God bless him. He was a great guy. And when the first day I was on the air in Atlanta, the then mayor at the time, Maynard Jackson, called into my show, welcomed me to his city. That's never happened. I've never had that experience before. But the mayor was a big fan of talk radio. And so he called me and welcomed me to town. Thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, I got to know him, had him on many times. I had Andrew Young on a number of times. I had Joe Lowry, the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Council. And I got to know all these guys. Now, they never agreed with my politics. But if you look at what these men did, and it's probably most appropriate on this Martin Luther King Jr. holiday to talk about this a little bit, you think of the times and what they did and the courage they showed through nonviolence and the change that was accomplished because of their bravery. It's pretty amazing. One of the things we see the most in life is real courage. Policemen, they're really courageous people. They're willing to do things we ourselves don't want to do, face criminals. Firemen, everyone else is getting out of the fire. They're going into the fire. I think doctors are pretty brave. You think I want to put my hand in somebody's open wound to save their life? I'm like, I'd do it, but, they do this every day. But you don't see a lot of especially political courage that results in major, dramatic, positive change. And that's what the civil rights movement did. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. did. That's what Hosea Williams did. That's what John Lewis did. They had hoses turned on them at high volume. They had dogs attacking them. And in the case of John Lewis, actually got hit in the head with a brick. And from what I understand, he still has his skull was forever damaged as a result of that. So I just admire their courage. And as a result of their courage, it led to the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. Interestingly, it was the Democratic Party that was against it. Lyndon Johnson, president at the time, he relied on Republicans in 64 and 65 for those respective acts. So I just respect John Lewis. I can't really say personally anything bad about the guy because I like him. But when he goes out like he did on Meet the Press this weekend and says this, it's very disappointing to me.
You have forged relationships with many presidents. Do you plan on trying to forge a relationship with Donald Trump?
I believe in forgiveness. I believe in trying to work with people. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult. I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You do not consider him a legitimate president. Why is that?
I think the Russians participated in helping this man get elected, and they helped destroy the candidacy of Hillary Clinton. I don't plan to attend Inauguration. It will be the first one that I miss since I've been in the Congress. You cannot be at home with something that you feel that is wrong.
That's going to send a big message to a lot of people in this country that you don't believe he's a legitimate president.
I think there was a conspiracy on the part of the Russians and others to help him get elected. That's not right. That's not fair. That's not the open democratic process.
Wow. That's so destructive. It's so irresponsible. And to me, is somebody that really does have admiration for these guys. It was a great experience. It was an education for me living in Atlanta. It was an education for me to debate these guys. I mean, to this day, Joe Lowry will see me and he would shake his head and he's like, oh, Hannity again? And I can't get rid of this guy. He thought when I left Atlanta, that was the end of Hannity. But anyway, it's just, you even have the Obama White House, the chief of staff, Dennis McDonough, declining to call the President-elect Donald Trump legitimate when questioned by Jake Tapper on State of the Union. I'm like, why? Why is that so difficult? Then you got more Democratic legislators plan on sitting out Trump's swearing in. And the president-elect actually responding back. It shows that Trump is being Trump. Even Bob Woodward, unlike Carl Bernstein is a hardcore leftist liberal. He just is. Bob Woodward, sometimes he'll even agree with me, and sometimes he'll disagree. I think he's more of a journalist of Woodward and Bernstein fame. And he was on Fox News Sunday, and he said the unverified dossier about President-elect Donald Trump is a garbage document. And meanwhile, you got his former partner in crime in Watergate, saying just the opposite. Guccifer 2.0 came out of hiding, and he said, sorry, he admitted he breached the DNC network in his latest post. He says, I hope you miss me a lot, though I see they didn't let you forget my name. The U.S. intelligence agencies have published several reports of late claiming I have ties with Russia. I'd like to make it clear enough that these accusations are unfounded. I have totally no relation to the Russian government. I'd like to tell you once again, I was acting in accordance with my personal political views and beliefs, and then the technical device contained in the reports doesn't stand up to scrutiny. This is a crude fake. He said any IT professional can see that a malware sample mentioned in the joint analysis report was taken from the web and was commonly available. A ton of hackers use it. I think it was inserted in the report to make it look a bit more plausible. I already explained that the Future of Cybersecurity Europe conference that took place in London last September, I had used a different way to breach the DNC network. I found a vulnerability in the NGP van software installed in the DNC system. I don't know what that means. I don't know who to trust anymore. Who's leaking all this stuff? Dianne finds, I believe Russia interfered and altered the outcome of the election. She can't, there's no evidence to back that up. Not even our intelligence people say it, but it doesn't matter. They want to delegitimize it. And they've got, honestly, whether they like it or not, at noon on Friday, we have a new president. That means it will be Donald J. Trump. So what is this about? It's about delegitimizing.
Hannity Headline, a bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you everywhere you go. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
All right, let's play a little more of this Project Veritas tape, and James O'Keefe joining us at the top of the hour. This is scary stuff, the left, of course, planning for the inauguration.
On the 18th, our first big action is planned. This is going to be a queer dance party at Mike Pence's house. We've got a bunch of folks who are organizing that. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be his last few days living in Chevy Chase before he moves into the vice presidential residence, and we're going to send him off with a bang. On the 19th is the floor ball, which is exactly what it sounds like. All the alt-right, neo-Nazis, et cetera, this is their party to celebrate Trump. We're going to crash it. For the 6 to 8 portion, the folks with the DC Anti-Fascist Coalition will talk more in detail about that and how you can plug in. The 20th is the big day. There's stuff happening all day. There's stuff organizing that's happening. Answers doing their thing along the parade route. They're going to be along the parade route all day. They've got a permit and a sound system and a stage. That's what they'll be doing. We'll be doing just about everything else. We get harder. So from early in the morning, I'm just going to go linear because there's too much going on. Get confused again the other way. Early in the morning, we're going to be doing blockade. We're going to be blockading checkpoints into the security zone. We're also going to be blockading roads and other modes of transit into the city. We're going to do everything we can to try to stop people from being able to access the inauguration.
All right, there you have it. That's Project Veritas. We'll have James O'Keefe at the top of the hour. Another bombshell by him. We'll show you the tape exclusively tonight, 10 Eastern on Hannity on the Fox News Channel, and James will explain it at the top of the next hour, but basically plotting a terrorist attack to disrupt the inauguration. And James has told me personally it's going to be worse as the week unfolds than what he's revealing already. So how come the Obama intelligence community didn't warn us about this impending terrorist attack? Too busy maybe chasing down golden showergate rumors or something? I mean, this, shortly after the election, they got a lot of tips that these radical groups were planning to derail President-elect Trump and his inaugural events, and various groups have gathered together under this hashtag Disrupt J20 umbrella, and this particular meeting was with three guys from the group, the, quote, DC Anti-Fascist Coalition. Yeah, if you had a pint of butyric acid, I don't know how big the building is. That building's closing. This stuff is very efficient, very smelly, lasts a long time, goes a long way. Another one, I'm trying to think through how to get all the sprinklers to go off at once. There's usually a piece of fusible metal, pieces of glass with liquid in it that will blow. This message has to be, we do not recognize the city government. You try to close us down, we'll look for your house, we'll burn it. We'll physically fight the police if they try and steal one of our places. We'll go to war with you, and you'll lose. Project Veritas also pointed out that actions could constitute a violation of the anti-terrorism laws. They took this information to the Secret Service and the FBI and the D.C. Metro Police and others. These are unbelievable times we're living in. I will tell you that. Pretty unbelievable times. Where's the president's condemnation of this? I thought, the JV team, ISIS, is under control. Okay, what's he going to do about this? I have a friend of mine, Nick, that just wrote me, why do you keep saying John Lewis is a nice guy? I hope you're trying to diffuse the tension. Lewis fired the first shot. Why is he immune to criticism? He's not. I said what he did is wrong. What I was saying is I admire people. Courage is, a lot of people are not courageous. Courage is more rare than I think people think. I mentioned, look at 9/11. Firemen, policemen, they go up, everybody else is racing down. That's courage. They knew there was a chance that they were going to die that day, and they did, many of them. Courage is, when you have a fire hose turned on you and dogs turn loose on you and bricks thrown in your head, and you still keep going. That, to me, is incredible courage. Now, this is not, by the way, the first time that John Lewis questioned the legitimacy of a presidential outcome he doesn't like. He's now questioning Trump's legitimacy, but he also questioned the legitimacy of George W. Bush. And he said, well, some of us think Al Gore won last time. That was in an interview in 2001. He also supported the idea of impeaching Bush in 2005 over the NSA's terrorist surveillance program. So I guess Donald Trump can look forward to John Lewis's perennial call for impeachment against whichever Republican happens to be in the White House. It's disappointing. Martin Luther King Jr.'s son, the third, was at the Trump Tower earlier today, calling his meeting with the president-elect this morning very constructive. Martin Luther King III said he believes that Donald Trump will strive to be an inclusive president. Asked if the president-elect had allayed any of his concerns, King noted that Trump, quote, said that he is going to represent all Americans. By the way, I think just what he's doing now by incentivizing companies not to go to Mexico, not to leave, repatriating money, seeing money targeted for Detroit, Michigan, for places like Cleveland and Ohio and Pennsylvania and other places, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Well, and talking about fixing our educational system, I think the people that are going to benefit the most are probably going to be people in inner city schools, which is going to be great. You know, poor Steve Harvey went to meet with President Obama, and he said on an interview the backlash has been unbelievable. So you're not even supposed to be allowed to talk to a president of the United States. Now, I have said on this program, I would love to meet Obama. I don't go to Washington Correspondents' dinners. I don't go to any place I'm not invited. Obama has turned down every interview request we gave him, both as a candidate and as a president. But if I met with him, I've also said it would be a very, very hard interview for me to do, probably the hardest, because I so respect the office, and I've said this before, that I can't just go in there and treat him like a Democratic, talking head on television, like, my buddy Juan Williams, beat the crap out of him. By the way, hashtag Bob Beckel is back at the Fox News Channel. Bob Beckel and I were very, very close for a long period of time. He had a key to my house for a long period of time. He probably still has it. I don't know. I bet he does. You want to bet? And, because he was living in the city, his family was in D.C., and he used to like to come out on weekends. He's been in my pool in my backyard more than me by 1,000. I hate the pool. I hate that stupid thing. All it does is cost money and drain money away. I know. Why do I have a stupid pool? I don't even like it. Anyway, I have a pool in my backyard. Well, it came with the house. What do you want me to do? But I never go in the dumb pool. I hate my son. My son made me go in and play with him like once or twice a year. Would make me throw me in, even with my clothes on. You're asking, what am I talking about? He's back. I'm glad he's back. Now, he ran into some trouble. He's been very open about it. And thank God, and I talked to him earlier today, he's doing well. I even said I want to bring him out on the road with me when I give speeches. Can you imagine? He can do the warm-up act, and I can come out and say everything he just said is false, phony, and wrong, and now let me tell you the truth. It'll be pretty funny. By the way, you know what butyric acid is? Did you ever read this, Linda? It's pretty amazing stuff. No, Linda just brought it into me. That's why I'm kidding around with her. It can affect your skin. It can affect you when inhaled, can be absorbed through the skin. Contact can be a severe irritant, burn the skin, burn your eyes, and possibly cause eye damage. And they're talking about putting this through the duct system at inauguration events. It can irritate the nose, throat, lungs. It's corrosive. They have first aid. Literally a first aid description of the amount of work you have to do, emergency numbers if you come into contact with this. This would be an act of terrorism. And they're planning worse, according to James O'Keefe. Yeah, by the way, where kids will be. I'm going to be in Washington Thursday and Friday this week. I don't think we'll have time to get to the inauguration, then get back to our studio and do the show, so I'll be like everybody else watching it on TV. And after that, I will be doing 2 hours this Friday night from one of the balls. Nobody's told me which one yet, so I don't know. I want to wear jeans. Fox is pushing very hard for a tux. Very hard. And then I'm going to be back the following week in D.C. for the first week of Donald Trump's presidency. So just to keep you up to, but look at the snowflakes. You got Project @Disrupt J20. Protesters to disrupt Trump inauguration plan, blockades, property damage, and what you'll hear at the top of the next hour. Immigrant rights rallies are going to be held in 50 U.S. cities. You got this guy on Twitter. I want a rhino to blank Paul Ryan to death. I'll just put it this way, a crude word for a sexual act. You got progressives prepping for the anti-Trump Women's March, and they're making, how do I say this, cat hats. The only way I can say it. College professors are organizing a national teach-in to challenge Trumpism. Anyone ever going to tell the truth about Obama in college? You have Women's March partnering with Islamic groups like CARE, unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation case. Really? Has CARE ever come out? I don't know the answer to this. Have they ever come out and talked about how women are treated under Sharia law? I don't remember. I mean, it's possible. We have another story out today. Since there's no longer any incentive for foreign leaders to suck up and bribe Bill and Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Global Initiative has announced they're going out of business. Anyway, Gateway Pundit points out they're shutting down the Clinton Global Initiative per papers filed with the Department of Labor this past week, and some 22 employees will be laid off in coming months at the Clinton Global Initiative. Now, this was interesting. Michael Goodwin in the New York Post, Democrats better be careful what they ask for because the Inspector General investigation that I told you all about last week into James Comey and the FBI and the Justice Department and their handling of Hillary's email gate, which Hillary supporters demanded, will almost certainly end up resurrecting the entire grab bag of Clinton investigation that's on the FBI's plate. Clinton world sees vindication in the new Justice Department investigation, but the Justice announcement opens the door to review not only Comey's actions, but also the Clintons' actions. And among other wonders, we could learn the whole truth about the tarmac meeting between Bill and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, and the Attorney General Loretta Lynch, whether Hillary, as Secretary of State, sold favors to donors of the Clinton Foundation. And for Trump, the new probe is another poison pill from the Obama White House. In addition to rescuing Clinton's reputation, it aims to give the president-elect a choice among bad options. But Comey is a tough infighter who wouldn't go quietly as Clinton agents tried to shred his reputation. So by defending himself in the FBI, Comey would be defending the legitimacy of Trump's triumph. This could backfire in their face. A pro-Obama author admits his presidency was a failure. This is pretty interesting. Maybe he watched my reaction to to Barack Obama's farewell address. And no matter how much they liked Obama personally, you have to admit his presidency is an utter disgraceful failure. The closing arguments for the Obama years, Kyle Smith writes, they aren't helping the outgoing president. A case in point is a new book published this week, one that acknowledges Obama supporters have experienced his presidency as a continuous disappointment. So states New York Magazine lefty firebrand Jonathan Chait in his new book, Audacity, How Barack Obama Defied His Critics and Created a Legacy That Will Prevail. But despite the upbeat title, he confesses, quote, for most of Obama's term, wage gains were largely confined to the rich. The administration's planning in Libya clearly failed. It's certain that the actual outcome of Obama's Syria policy was disastrous. Not exactly a good thing. What else do I have today? The White House is now beginning to distance themselves from John Lewis's remark. Martin Luther King Jr. on this Martin Luther King Day, his niece voted for Donald Trump, a friend of ours. We love, and I don't think the media will talk about it, but Alveda King, and a large number of British hospitals, by the way, are now canceling cancer surgeries. They can't afford it. All right, 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of this extravaganza. We'll get to your calls, and we have coming up James O'Keefe. He will play in detail all of this tape of Disrupt 20 when we start the top of the next hour. Then we'll check in with Joel Pollack. He is Breitbart's senior editor-at-large. He has a brand-new book out, How Did Donald Trump Actually Win? And we'll debate John Lewis's comments. Those are our top three stories today on this inauguration week.
This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
Do you have any doubt in your mind that Russia tried to interfere in the election? And then second, do you believe it altered the outcome?
The answer is yes on both cases.
All I can tell you is the FBI director has no credibility.
My general rule about email is don't send something that you don't mind being published in the newspapers.
He helped this country like no president I've seen in my lifetime. We should thank God we lived in the age of Obama.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
We burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon, baby. This is how we roll.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
Shortly after the election, we started getting tips that radical groups are planning to derail President-elect Trump's inauguration, perhaps even trying to shut down the city of Washington, D.C. Various groups, some old, some new, have gathered together under the Disrupt J20 umbrella: Progress Unity Fund, Workers' World Party, Americans Take Action, Answer Coalition, and many more. Today's investigation focuses on these guys from the D.C. Anti-Fascist Coalition.
The message has to be that, we do not recognize the city government either. If you try to close us down, we will look for your house, we will burn it, we will physically fight the police if they try to clear one of our places. We will go to war, you will lose.
Early on, one of our journalists was sent an email inviting him to a planning meeting. The discussion centered around disrupting the Deplorable, a big pro-Trump inaugural ball scheduled the night before the inauguration.
I mean, it would be really interesting if we could stop them from having a Deplorable ball. Yeah.
It was at this meeting where we met Scott Green, Luke Kuhn, and Colin Dunn. They were very gung-ho and clearly well-versed in the dark arts of sabotage.
We already know what we're all there for, so we won't be, okay, so we don't have to use the word deplorable at all. Yeah. And things like that. So just in case there are yahoos in there.
Through emails, another meeting was set up at the infamous Comet Ping Pong Pizza Restaurant in Northwest Washington, D.C.
I was thinking of things that would ruin the evening, ruin their outfits, or otherwise make it impossible to continue with their plans, make sure they get nothing accomplished.
The Deplorable is being held here at the National Press Club in downtown Washington, D.C. The plan: set off butyric acid stink bombs, forcing everyone to evacuate the premises.
Yeah, if you had a freaking pint of butyric acid, I don't care how big the building is, it's closing. It's staying closed for a while.
And this stuff is it's very efficient. It's very, very smelly. It lasts a long time, and a little of it goes a long way.
We repeated the original plan. We said you pour that same stuff, and then I can break the cans with a plunger, some stiff rubber bands, and a safety pin thing. So all you got to do is pull the pin and press the plunger, the whole can discharges.
This is the way we have to brainstorm to think of what can we do that will accomplish the mission. So that is bad enough. That stuff is nasty enough that it will spread.
It will get into the HVAC system and hit the whole building.
The best possible location to get to it is the air intake grill for the entire HVAC.
Yeah. The actions could constitute a violation of anti-terrorism laws, a felony with a possible 5-year prison sentence and a significant fine. As the meeting continued, Colin Dunn and Scott Green made a plan to scout the location where the Deplorable is being held.
You want to case the place?
I can do that.
I mean, you want to do it together?
Say, it may work better with 2 people. That way it's not one person's memory saying, here's where everything is.
Yeah.
There was also talk about setting off the fire alarm sprinklers in the building. Plan B, if the stink bomb effort failed.
I know, I'm trying to think through how to get all the sprinklers off at once. There's usually a piece of fusible metal or a piece of glass and a liquid in it that'll blow. I need to research to make sure that we can actually get them to all trigger if we trigger one. Yeah. And the added benefit, everybody as they walk outside will get freaking cold. Yes.
A few days later, our journalists received this email from Scott Green. Quote, "The reconnaissance went pretty well, and we left with the confidence that we can accomplish our objective with no negative consequences for our side, nor any collateral damage. We determined that the risks posed by these potential crimes were of such a magnitude that we decided to alert law enforcement. Last week, our journalists met with agents from the FBI, the Secret Service, and the D.C. Metro Police to report our findings."
We found that both the Disrupt J20 and the DC Anti-Fascist Coalition were plotting to shut down some of the inaugural balls that were occurring, using butyric acid, shutting off sprinkler systems. So we're thankful that the FBI and the task force is looking into this, and we hope that there will be charges brought soon.
All right, that is the latest tape from Project Veritas. You need to hear and understand what is going on here. You've got this D.C., quote, anti-fascist fascist coalition, literally plotting criminal activities to disrupt President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration, including unleashing acid that apparently smells like a stink bomb as a means of disrupting what's happening. Joining us now is the man himself, the founder of Project Veritas, James O'Keefe. And so now we have the left wing literally, what I watched was preparing an act of terrorism against this country.
Yes, Sean, exactly right. These people were actually talking about deploying butyric acid into the HVAC ventilation systems of the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. They also talked about setting off fire alarm sprinklers. And the reason we know this is not just a conversation is because they followed up with an email where they were talking about casing the facility and doing reconnaissance on the facility to ensure that they could actually do this. So we actually went to the FBI, went to law enforcement, but never before have we actually seen video up close and personal with these individuals conspiring to do this.
So what we just played for our audience here, you've got this one guy, Luke Kuhn or Khan or whatever his name is. If you had a pint of butyric acid, and I don't care how big the building is, that building's closing. And then another guy, Scott Green, goes, and this stuff is like very efficient. It's very smelly. It lasts a long time. A little bit goes a long way. And then Colin Dunn says, well, I'm trying to think through how to get all the sprinklers to go off at once. And then they go on from there. And this is an act of terrorism. This is not disruption. This is, as you even say in the video, you support freedom of speech. You support the freedom of people to assemble. But this is, I don't think you can say anything else. This is plotting an act of terrorism. That's how I see this tape.
Yes, and according to the D.C. statutes, our lawyer went to the FBI, the counterterrorism, the police, the D.C. Metro Police, and under D.C. code, this is actually defined as terrorism. So we're suspecting in the next 24 hours or 48 hours that they're going to arrest these people. Again, deplorable. The deplorable is a forum. 1,000 people are going to this national press event. They really want to target this deplorable for some reason. This is their target. And if they don't, if the authorities don't intervene, these people may actually harm people. So we're expecting an arrest in the next, whatever, few hours, next day or two. And if they don't do that, then everyone going to this deplorable has reason to fear for their safety.
So let me ask you, when you met with the FBI, the Secret Service, and the D.C. Metro Police, what was their reaction?
Well, the reaction was basically, thank you for bringing this to us. They actually told us that they had these guys on their radar screen. They didn't have video like we had. But one of the guys' names is Luke in the video, the guy with the long hair.
Right.
Actually, they had his last name. They knew who these guys were. They were on their radar screen. And they said that they're, quote, they're seriously investigating. And it was a really important thing. They thanked us. One of the guys actually said they were a fan of mine. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But they were very grateful, and they were going to do something with this information. They were, all these people were on their radar screen.
Let me go to this guy, Luke, again. The message has to be, we do not recognize the city government either. If you try to close us down, we're going to look for your house. We will burn it. We will physically fight the police if they try to steal one of our places. We will go to war, and you will lose. And then Scott says, well, I was thinking of things that would ruin their evening, ruin their outfits, or otherwise make it impossible to continue with their plans, so they get nothing accomplished. And then Luke says, well, we could do a repeat of the original plan. If you order that same stuff, then I can rig the cans where you take with a plunger, rubber bands, and a safety pin, so all you have to do is pull the pin and press the plunger, and the whole can discharges. And then they went into a long discussion how they would get it into the HVAC ducts, which means it goes viral throughout any building.
That's right. I mean, they're talking about physical violence against people or property on federal grounds. It's a violation of federal law. It's a violation of D.C. law. And if they had actually done this, if they had carried this out, the mayhem, the chaos, the physical violence, and this is not the only thing that they have talked about doing. We went to the FBI and told them about all the other things they were going to do. What's interesting to me, Sean, is this is Disrupt J20. This is not just the Anti-Fascist Coalition. These are a series of groups that are involved in these types of activities. Are these groups and organizers and left-wing agitators going to disavow what we have reported in this tape?
Well, I'm not so sure. I mean, you've got all these Democrats saying that Trump is not a legitimately elected president, and then you got all these other people that are not going to the inauguration. I've never seen such bitterness and hostility towards an incoming president in my lifetime. And, you imagine if we acted this way back in 2008 and 2012, it would have been front page news everywhere. And, and I got to tell you something. People need to understand here. You're exposing some of the some very bad, extreme people here, and that means you're putting your life at risk to bring this to the public. These are people that are plotting and planning and scheming, to burn down people's homes if they dare to expose them. That would mean you, and probably me right behind you.
It probably would, but it's not just me. It's at Veritas we have a secure location. We have good security. We have taken I need to say this publicly. We've taken appropriate steps to protect ourselves. I don't think it would be easier for them to do that to me. But it's not just me. It's my reporters. We have a number of people who are still embedded and reporting on some of their activities. A couple of them have now been blown since we went public with this information. The guy that met at this Pizza Comet restaurant. So
wasn't that Comet Place in another video you did? What are all the extremists hang out there?
The Comet Pizza thing is actually pretty ironic and funny that they met there to discuss these plans. Comet Pizza was the source of a bunch of controversy with John Podesta and some conspiracy theories. The fact that they were meeting at this Comet Pizza place is interesting. But later this week, we are going to our team will confront many of these individuals.
So we're going to have you on like we have in the past with more videos coming every day.
We have a video coming out tomorrow, and it's pretty bad. It rises to the level of terrorism tomorrow,
you're saying it's worse than this?
Yes, I mean it involves public transportation systems tomorrow, and they articulate what they're going to do, and we're just getting information every hour because we're still embedded. So we're going to be on your show tomorrow if you'll let me be on.
No. Well, of course we're putting you on, and you take great personal risk to do all of this. And I know you don't get the credit you deserve, but you played a very big part in exposing these people in the election, and I thank you for your courage, and I ask you to please stay safe.
Thank you, Sean. We'll do, and we'll have more to report back to you shortly.
All right, thank you. 800-941-SEAN, our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. Joel Pollack is the editor, a senior editor-at-large at Breitbart. He's going to join us next. We have a lot more coming up, then our news roundup and information overload hour coming up at the top of the hour.
Hannity Headline, a bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you everywhere you go. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
Now, back to the Sean Hannity Show.
On the 18th, our first big action is planned. This is going to be a queer dance party at Mike Pence's house. We've got a bunch of folks who are organizing that. It's going to be a lot of fun. On the 19th is the Deplorable, which is exactly what it sounds like. All the alt-right, neo-Nazis, etc., etc. This is their party to celebrate Trump. We're going to crash it. The 20th is the big day. There's stuff happening all day. There's stuff organizing that's happening. Answers doing their thing along the parade route. They're going to be along the parade route all day. They've got a permit and a sound system and a stage. That's what they'll be doing. We'll be doing just about everything else. We have partners. So from early in the morning, I'm just going to go linear because there's too much going on. Get confused again the other way. Early in the morning, we're going to be doing blockade. We're going to be blockading checkpoints into the security zone. We're also going to be blockading roads and other modes of transit into the city. We're going to do everything we can to try to stop people from being able to access the operation.
All right, that's more from the Project J20 that we just broke with our good friend, Mr. James O'Keefe, in the last half hour of the program. And it is pretty scary when you're talking about the types of things they are discussing. It sounds like domestic terrorism to me, and we'll have more of this blockbuster story in the days to come, including tomorrow. He's probably one of the best writers I know and one of the smartest people I know. He's Breitbart's senior editor-at-large, and he's the author of a brand new book, How Trump Won, The Inside Story of a Revolution. And just coming out today, and it's up on Hannity.com, Amazon.com, and now in bookstores everywhere. He's been a friend for a long time. I don't get to see him that often because he's out on the left coast. And where do you live, in Hollywood? Where are you hanging out in California?
The People's Republic of Santa Monica.
Joel Pollack is back with us. Let me ask you this. You see these snowflakes, but now now they're talking about real harm to people that support Trump. What is your reaction to that?
It's amazing how they've deflected. There's a group out in California that's predicting that the moment Trump's inaugurated, there's going to be all these hate crimes against minority groups and so forth. It's a ridiculous, nightmarish fantasy, and it's projecting, of course, because, as James O'Keefe has exposed, it's
the left and a lot of these left-wing activist groups that are planning to disrupt, not just to protest, not to state their opinion or their perspective, but to disrupt, to prevent the inauguration from happening. They actually say on one of those videos that their goal would be to have it moved. In other words, to prevent the Democratic transfer of power.
So you've seen the video, as I have, and it's pretty scary stuff, but it doesn't surprise us. I mean, they started with the recount. That didn't work out, and then they moved from there. Now you've got, and we'll get into this at the top of the next hour, now you've got even civil rights icons like John Lewis. I'd known John Lewis for years when I was in Atlanta. I like John Lewis personally, but to say that the president's not legitimate, and then to have all of these congressmen saying that they're not going to the inauguration, it's clear what's happening now. They want to delegitimize Donald Trump, and that's what the whole Russian hacking thing, to me, is all about.
Let's see. We've been through alt-right, fake news, Russian hacking.
Yeah.
Every week it's a new one, and they believe all of them. Because they just can't accept, first of all, that they lost. And they also can't accept why they lost. And if you listen to guys like Michael Moore, who was warning them before the election, Trump's going after your voters. Trump's talking about their issues.
Well, he actually said Trump would win, and now I think it's probably financially viable for him to go on the other side and lead the Stop Trump movement. A little late, Michael, but and the fact that people even give him any credence. I went to a debate years ago. It was a presidential debate, maybe in 2004, 2000, I don't remember when. And there's Michael Moore's jet, a Gulfstream 4, sitting on a tarmac at an FBO, and I'm like, whose plane is that? Michael Moore's. It's another phony Learjet liberal hypocrite, you know?
Well, he may be many of those things and more. In fact, one of the stories Andrew Breitbart broke while he was still with us was Michael Moore's big mansion on Torch Lake in Michigan.
Yeah.
And
doesn't he have many mansions?
Yeah. And yet he had his finger on the pulse of Flint, Michigan, his hometown, just as we did.
Yeah.
And just as you did.
Sure.
And saying, these are the voters calling into your show and calling into Breitbart's show on Sirius and people who we're encountering in the field out there. That's what I write about in my book, How Trump Won. It's just these voters were coming out for Trump. And
I
he was
want to get
connecting
into
to
this.
Yeah.
Because there is a phenomenon that happened here. And I thought early on, this is my own opinion, and I tried to keep a lot of my opinions to myself because I was being fair. Although I got accused of not being fair to every other candidate that was running. But I felt it was going to take an outsider. I felt it was going to take somebody that could break through that blue wall, as they call it. So why don't you go through how he did this? What happened here? How did he get Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, the Rust Belt?
So the overall story is of an outsider candidate going over the heads of the media, talking directly to the American people, talking about trade and immigration in ways that neither Democrats nor Republicans had allowed a kind of discussion to take place. But I often pinpoint one particular week in July 2015 when he met with the victims' families of people who had been killed by illegal aliens. It's not that there are so many people who fall into that category.
I did a whole town hall with them.
Right, and it's amazing how those folks have come to stand for so many other people who've been ignored by government, right? The first responsibility of government is to protect the citizens. They weren't protected. A lot of other people feel like they've been left behind. And so Trump was really talking not just to those families, but to people in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, everywhere, who have been left behind, who've been told that their concerns don't matter, that if they lost their insurance, it's their problem. If they lost a son overseas in a war that Obama gave up on, too bad. And I think people were just frustrated and said enough is enough.
You talk in the book about, and I think WikiLeaks did a great job exposing this, how the liberal media was positive that Trump would lose. I was reading a comment from somebody, I think it was, what's the guy that works over, Rick Santelli. He was actually on one of the Sunday shows, not this past weekend, the weekend before, and he made the comment that, you guys look so depressed. I'd never seen you people so sad that night. And there was that shock. You write about it in the book, that the media had. They couldn't believe that he won. They were convinced she would win. I saw the first exit polls. I literally threw them in the garbage because it happened in 2004 to me, too.
So you had the experience to do that. A lot of people didn't. We write about that in the book as well. My co-author, Larry Schweikart, was part of a team that was giving data.
Smart guy.
Very smart guy, best-selling New York Times author, historian. He was part of a team feeding data to the Trump people, and he was talking some of them off a ledge on Election Day, saying, hey, never mind these exit polls. We know what's happening in northeastern Ohio. We know what's happening in Florida. The Democrats are...
No, it had him losing Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and everywhere in between. I don't think he was going to win 5 states, according to the exit polls. Now, I talked to Donald Trump on Election Day 3 times. The first call was what you said. Don't buy... And I told him the story in 2004.
That's right.
2004, on this radio program, Dick Cheney got off a plane and at 5:35 in the afternoon called my radio show because John Kerry, according to the exit polls, was going to be the next president. So I told Trump that story early in the day, once the exit polls had come in. The second time I called him, I said, you got this. And that was around 8:30. And I was looking at every county, every place, everywhere. And he goes, how do you know? That's what he said. Are you sure? Are you sure? You know? And the third time I called, I said, congratulations, Mr. President.
Right. Well, at 7:30, about an hour before you spoke to him, I walked into the Trump victory party, which I was covering.
It was a funeral home.
It felt like and people were kind of getting ready to drink the sorrows away. Okay, especially the reporters who'd cover Romney losing and McCain losing. You know, okay, another one of these. We've been through them. We know how to deal with them. And then we started talking about the Panhandle counties in Florida, which hadn't come in yet. Wait a minute, we haven't counted the Panhandle. You know, I went to Pensacola covering Trump's speech there, and I went up to a woman there and said, "Why are you voting for Donald Trump?" Which was
the last 5 minutes of my show this election year. Donald Trump Jr. I had gotten the information from my sources, and they were being told Southwest Florida and the Panhandle were not voting in the numbers they needed. Donald Trump Jr. called this radio program and said, if you're in the Panhandle, if you're in Southwest Florida, get to the polls, and if you're in the Panhandle, you got an extra hour.
Yeah, it's solid red country there. I mean, this woman I spoke to, I said, why are you voting for Trump? She said, because I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's the level of support. So they hadn't counted those votes yet. Those people were still voting, in fact, at 7:30. So I think the polls closed at 8.
Yeah.
And we said, wait a minute. We got to see what
happens.
They had
an extra hour. But, you know, what I was looking at, when the numbers from Florida started coming in, I kept going back to Broward and Palm Beach County. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see what those numbers were. And then the I-4 corridor. And then, look, everyone asked me, well, why weren't you at the party? I'm like, because I'm in my bed with my computer, and I am a total nerd. What's happening in Cuyahoga County? What's happening in Hamilton County? What's going on in Wake County in North Carolina? And what I do is I try to figure it out on my own.
There was a map that came out on Fox News, I think it was the day before, and it pretty much summarized how I felt things were going to go. I knew Trump had a chance, but I didn't expect him to win. I expected him to lose narrowly, and the Fox map actually was exactly what I thought. I thought he was going to win Florida and Ohio.
And North Carolina.
But I thought he was possibly going to fall short in Nevada and New Hampshire, and I knew that the only way he could win was to break that blue wall, and he did it. And when he won Wisconsin, that's when I knew it was over.
I actually thought there was a better chance in Michigan, Wisconsin than Pennsylvania.
Really?
Now, that girl in there, kept saying, that's my peeps. I'm from Pennsylvania. Come on, they're going to win. I'm like, yeah, Pennsylvania's the biggest tea state in the history of the Republican. Put your mic on, Miss New York.
First of all, that impersonation of me, Joel, I mean, isn't it amazing? It just gets better every year that I'm with him. It's just great.
Joel, she talks like a New Yorker, even though she's from Philly.
But the truth be told,
you did. You said, my peeps are going to pull through.
I said Pennsylvania was finally going to give it up.
Rose Tennant said the same thing.
Drinks. It's
I knew Trump had a chance to win Pennsylvania when we were following him in the motorcade, and he pulled off at a Wawa and went in and bought Tasty Cakes. And I said,
that's like the quintessential Pennsylvania moment,
that's
by
it.
The way.
He just won Eastern Pennsylvania. So he really was pulling out all the stops there. But
what else did you learn? And what should we take about the news media in this country and how corrupt they are?
Well, I don't think they realize the extent to which they share a common bias. And I think that there are definitely some people I enjoyed getting to know on the campaign trail, some real professionals, hardworking people. And then there were others who would just show up at a Trump event and not know what to make of it because they weren't talking to people, because they had a set of expectations. One of the stories I tell in the book is about going to that election eve rally in New Hampshire where Donald Trump read the letter from Bill Belichick and talked about how Tom Brady had voted for him. And all people could talk about in the media, if you looked at Twitter and so forth, was whether the letter from Bill Belichick was real and whether Tom Brady had really voted for him. And they missed what Trump said in the rest of the speech, which was the most strident appeal to the working class that any Republican candidate since Reagan had ever made. He said, tomorrow the working class of America is going to strike back. And that's what he said, and that was stirring stuff. But they missed it because they were chasing the shiny object and looking for a way to trip him up. And I just think they didn't realize, collectively, the media did not realize how much of a hive mind they'd really become.
Let's talk about how weak Hillary was as a candidate. How big an impact did that play in the election?
It was a huge impact because she had so many ethical problems. She couldn't tell the truth even when she had the opportunity to tell the truth. We were told at that UN press conference that she was coming clean about the server and so forth, and it just reinforced a lot of the public doubts from 20 years before. She still could have pulled this off, and she just lacked one thing Trump has, which, to use a Trump phrase, she was low energy. She was not campaigning as hard as he was. He was working the journalists to death, never mind his campaign staff.
Joel Pollack is with us. I got two more questions for him when we get back. His brand new book, it's up on my website, How Trump Won, the Inside Story of a Revolution. At the top of the next hour, News Roundup Information Overload Hour on the Sean Hannity Show. The comments of Congressman John Lewis calling Trump's presidency illegitimate on Meet the Press and what this means when the Democrats have taken such a radical hard line. We'll get to that.
This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
This is how we roll. We light it up with our hands up. This is how we roll.
Do you have any doubt in your mind that Russia tried to interfere in the election? And then second, do you believe it altered the outcome?
The answer is yes on both cases.
All I can tell you is the FBI director has no credibility.
My general rule about email is don't send something you don't mind being published in the newspapers.
He helped this country like no president I've seen in my lifetime. We should thank God we lived in the age of Obama.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
We burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon, baby. This is how we roll.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America. Stay right here for our final news roundup and information overload.
You have forged relationships with many presidents. Do you plan on trying to forge a relationship with Donald Trump?
You know, I believe in forgiveness. I believe in trying to work with people. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult. I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You do not consider him a legitimate president. Why is that?
I think the Russians participated in helping this man get elected, and they helped destroy the candidacy of Hillary Clinton. I don't plan to attend the inauguration. It would be the first one that I miss since I've been in the Congress. You cannot be at home with something that you feel that is wrong.
That's going to send a big message to a lot of people in this country that you don't believe he's a legitimate president.
I think there was a conspiracy on the part of the Russians and others to help him get elected. That's not right. That's not fair. That's not the open democratic process.
Really sad remarks from Congressman John Lewis of Georgia. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. He made those comments on Meet the Press. They released it Friday. He's not attending the inauguration on January 20th. I think we're up to like 23 people now, Democrats that are not attending. And I'm like, good riddance. Who cares if you come? Bye-bye. Adding that he does not see Trump as a legitimate president. And Donald Trump took to Twitter early Saturday to say, well, Congressman John Lewis should spend more time on fixing and helping his district, which is in horrible shape and falling apart, not to mention crime-infested, rather than falsely complaining about the election results. All talk, 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 no action or results, sad, Trump said in a series of tweets. Well, apparently you can't criticize Congressman Lewis because if you do, you've just crossed the bridge too far. Well, he does that to everybody else. So why should he act different? Now, I know John Lewis. There's a lot I respect about John Lewis. Those years that I spent in Atlanta, I got to know many of these civil rights icons, like John Lewis, who marched arm in arm with Martin Luther King, Reverend Hosea Williams, former Mayor Maynard Jackson, Andy Young, Joe Lowery of the SCLC. I used to have these guys on radio, and we'd fight it out, but I still had great, deep respect for who they are and the courage that they showed and the accomplishments that they had in their life, making this a better society. John Lewis got fire hoses turned on him. John Lewis got hit in the head with a brick. I mean, for his belief system and standing up for what's right. I just have deep respect for him. I don't have respect for these comments, though. And if I had him on the air right now, I'd say it right to him. And he's known me for many, many years. But it's sad to me that these people on the left cannot accept the election results, and they are willing to damage at any cost Donald Trump and not acknowledge that he is the duly elected president, just like they said with George W. Bush. Imagine anybody that dared to say to President or candidate Obama, well, why don't you just release your birth certificate? It became birther. I never thought there was anything to it myself. I just thought it was odd they wouldn't release it. You want my birth certificate, Metropolitan Hospital, December 30th, 1961, 10:38 in the morning. Okay? It's simple. Go find it. Too many details, right? It was a day of infamy. I know. It was, yeah. All right, joining us to discuss this, Daryl Parks, managing partner of Parks and Crump, former attorney for the Michael Brown family and for Trayvon Martin's family. Kevin Jackson, the executive director of the Black Sphere and author of The Big Black Lie. Welcome both of you to the program. Daryl Parks, do you agree with John Lewis that Donald Trump's presidency is illegitimate?
Well, without question, Sean, President Donald Trump is the legal president of the United States.
I didn't ask if he's legal. Is he the legitimate, honest, duly elected president of the United States?
He's a duly elected president. I mean, we all know that.
So what So what John Lewis said was the wrong thing to say.
Well, no, I think you're taking his words out of context. I think him and many other Americans have concerns about his presidency.
He said he doesn't see him as a legitimate president. So what does that mean?
No, he's a legitimate president.
All right, so you disagree with John Lewis? It's okay. Listen, I like John Lewis. I have a lot of respect for John Lewis. You got to understand, I know him, and believe me, I'm sure he doesn't love Hannity, but I really have a deep respect for the guy. I mean, he was people that show real courage. I love courage. Courage is something that we don't see enough of in life. So I have a lot of respect for his courage. Kevin Jackson.
Sean, I got to tell you, first of all, Trump is the definite president-elect. He will become president. It is completely legitimate. And John Lewis pulls this every single time. He pulled it with he pulled a race card with John McCain. He pulled a race card with Mitt Romney. And you know what he does every single time? He harkens back to, his religious conviction. I want to get along with everybody. And then, of course, we got to go back to John Lewis getting his beating. And look, I completely admire what he went through when Democrats were beating the crap out of black folks back in the 60s. What I don't admire is that he became one. And the other thing I don't admire is the Democrats always trumping out the race card, pardon the pun, as if that's going to get them over the finish line with no matter what. Donald Trump, in one tweet, did more for black people when he tweeted Rahm Emanuel saying, if I have to get the Fed involved in you allowing black people to be killed on the streets in Chicago, I'll do it. He did more for blacks in that one tweet than Barack Obama did in 8 years. And also the idea that he's actually creating jobs, not manipulating the system and saying, oh, look at all these new jobs based on the unemployment numbers, when we all know that we have massive unemployment in this country, particularly with black people. So John Conyers should be singing Donald Trump's praises, but instead he's going to fight him at every turn. Why? Because he's been trained to do that.
What's your reaction, Daryl?
Well, let me say this here. I think the solution should have been the president-elect should have called Mr. Congressman Lewis and talked with him, and that hasn't happened. So at some point, these guys need to talk so they can work through this, because obviously Donald Trump is going to be the president, and the world thinks the greatest of Congressman Lewis, and this is a situation that should be addressed. I don't think the two of them.
Look, Daryl, I don't disagree with you that they should talk, but why do you say it's Donald Trump's responsibility to call John Lewis? John Lewis should admit what you just said. Donald Trump is the legitimate president of this nation. I don't care Russians' involvement or whatever else. And what's funny about that is for them to even imply that there's no real proof of that. The real proof came in the fact that people were afraid to say that they were going to vote for Donald Trump. And people were getting beaten up when they did admit to voting for Donald Trump. And quite frankly, it's still that way to this day. John Lewis should be looking for rights for everybody, not just rights for specific people. And that's what he's doing.
There's a role that the president plays in these type of situations. That he has the bigger place and role that he can play in this situation. I think he can easily remedy this situation by having a conversation with the congressman. It's a small disagreement. He's going to be the president, and just like what President-elect did on the Obamacare issue over the weekend, when he talked about and reassured everyone that insurance for everybody is his goal. That's leadership.
Look, he said that during the campaign. The reason why Donald Trump does not need to reach across the aisle to John Lewis is he didn't do anything. Lewis started this. If President-elect Trump reaches across, it's going to look like, yet again, we've got a situation where the squeaky wheel is getting the grease. Let me tell you something.
Maybe you don't understand.
Hold on a second. The people that voted for Donald Trump are tired of the race baiters like John Lewis trotting out the civil rights movement. Donald Trump did not beat anybody.
Let me just say that I don't think it's fair to say he's race baiting here. I just don't. I think this is a political difference, solely a political differ's. Look, John Lewis, I know him, Kevin, and I know he's a liberal Democrat, but I'm telling you, he's a very special man. You got to look at his life story and the courage that this guy showed. I mean, dogs in his face, fire hoses turned on him, bricks to his head, and he stood strong. the guy changed the world with others that marched with him. I admire him.
That's why it becomes important that President-elect Trump reach out to him.
Well, he had Martin Luther King Jr.'s son at the Trump Tower today. I mean, I think he's been reaching across the aisle the whole time. I mean, I know Pastor Scott and the Diversity Coalition. I've met many of the people that are part of it. No one wants to hear from them because they're conservative.
Now, look, Sean, all these guys, including John Lewis, were talking about, before we got onto this whole thing about the Russian hacking, they were all calling Donald Trump the biggest racist on the planet. They were talking about how he had messed with the Latinos, how he was against the Muslims, how he was against black folks. So look, I don't have any problem essentially saying that John Lewis did exactly what you said. Many people have fought a civil rights battle. We lost a civil rights icon yesterday with Ennis, Roy Ennis. Nobody's talking about what Roy Ennis did. So the point is, these guys, as much as I appreciate their past, what I don't appreciate is the race baiting. Every time something comes up, we got to harken back to Donald Trump is racist. He doesn't like black folks, or all the different things that we have to hear from the left, as opposed to just saying you want to work with him. And one other point: when Barack Obama was elected, if we had done anything close to this, what do you think the left would be saying? They don't want to work with him because he's black. If you don't want to work with Trump because you disagree with his policy issues, then say that and be done with it. But then, I'm not going to go to the inauguration. All of that leads to the idea of exactly what I've been talking about.
Well, let me say this, Sean. I think we have to be careful here. There are many people out in the country who still have strong concerns about whatever happened. Yes, the election's over. They still have strong concerns about how it went down. Now, we are about to inaugurate the President of the United States on Friday, and the country needs to rally. His leadership, especially this week, is critical, especially on Martin Luther King's birthday. It's important that the president-elect show leadership for the whole country. He has a tough mountain to climb in doing that, but he has to do it because this country has to go forward. It's just like the encouragement we have seen from President Obama. They disagree heavily, but one thing that President Obama has said, that it's important that Donald Trump is successful for this country to be successful. So we all want to see him be successful at the end of the day.
I would love to say that's exactly what should happen. But you know what should really happen? John Lewis should apologize and say, you know what, regardless of how this election occurred, because we don't have all the answers, Donald Trump is a legitimate president. And I will, where he and I agree, I'm willing to work with him. Where we disagree, we'll sit down and work out our differences. Nobody's ever asking that. We hardly ever ask these questions. America is always held to task. Well, we don't ask the Middle East about their not allowing us in. We never ask Mexico about their immigration policy. Why is it always on the people who are on the side of righteousness, who didn't do anything, to go and apologize?
Well, let me say this, Sean.
To be the bigger person.
Sean, let me say this. The one thing that I was encouraged by over the weekend, I was very happy to see, as a result of the protest, that Donald Trump came forward and tried to reassure the American public that, as it relates to Obamacare, that he has a concern about everyone being insured. That's important because the one thing that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 days in the news is many, many seriously ill people who've learned to rely upon this protection that was afforded by this insurance coverage.
I've got to run. This will be a debate that will continue tonight at 10 on Hannity on the Fox News Channel. We are only 4 days left of the Obama presidency. America's long, horrible nightmare coming to an end.
Hannity Headline, a bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you everywhere you go. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
All right, 25 now till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. All right, let's get to our busy telephones here. Bella is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Bella, hi, how are you? Glad you called.
Sean, thank you so much for taking my call. I've waited 6 years to get back on with you. First, can we all give a big shout-out to Chris Cox, the founder of Bikers for Trump, for the inauguration.
You know, this guy's trying to send me something via the Fox News Channel. I can't get it. They don't find it. But, yeah, these guys are going to go there, and apparently they're going to be there for protection if anybody acts up. That's great. I love bikers. I want to be a biker in my next life.
I do, too. This is the best birthday present. It's my birthday on Wednesday, and I'm going to be celebrating on Saturday. Thank you, because God bless America. We have a real leader, Donald J. Trump. Sean, I don't know if you remember, but in September of 2010 was the first time I called in to you, And out of exasperation, frustration, and just terrified that we weren't going to stop the Clinton machine, I said to you, why don't we get Trump? And it just came to me in that moment because I thought, the problem with this country is we have never had a businessman, we've never had an American, we've never had someone come forward for the blue-collar, hard-working people to lead this country out of the disaster that we got pulled into the last 8 years.
Well, I got to tell you something. I think this is the best opportunity we're going to get to fix things. And that's what I was saying when I got back from vacation. We can't just vote for Trump and walk away and expect Republicans to discover a backbone without pressure from us. Okay? So
yes.
We've got our work cut out for us. Well, listen, for your birthday, I'm going to send you a Trump pen. Have you heard the Trump pen I've been playing on the air?
No, I haven't. But let me tell you something, Sean, because this is what I wanted to tell you. You inspired me to do something. Because when I got off the phone with you that day, I thought, the problem is we've got to get people that don't listen, that don't pay attention, that have lost touch and have given up hope in this country. You inspired me to sit in my truck 5 nights a week.
Wow.
You probably don't know what I was doing in my truck 5 nights a week.
No, that's the best compliments I can
too.
get. By the way, listen. I'm really rich. It's an actual pen.
I will build a great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
So it's a Donald Trump pen, and you push the head, and it talks. And it has a lot more sayings.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm going to send that to you, all right? Happy birthday, and maybe I'll see you at the inauguration, okay?
Looking forward to it, Sean. God bless America.
God bless you, and God bless America. Sherry is in Houston, KTRH. What's up, Sherry? How are you? Glad you called. Happy Monday.
Thank you. Hi, Sean. I love your show. And I have a question for you, and I'd love to hear you address it at some point. And that is, where do all these snowflakes come from that keep saying ugly things and threatening everybody for standing up against Obama and the Democrats and Hillary for Trump? Where do they come from?
Well, they're just bitter, angry liberals. This is a pretty divided country. And, after... Yeah, what's amazing to me is how many of them just are incapable of seeing any truth, any reality about how bad Obama's been. That to me is, I'm like, I scratch my wooden conservative head and I'm like, really? You think he did a good job? Tell me what he did.
Yeah.
And I ask liberals, tell me what he did. And now I'll say the one thing that he did, I'll give him credit for, is, signing off on the bin Laden raid. All right, good. But he didn't do anything. All he did was say, yeah, do it. But the intelligence people, but he made the decision. And maybe it was a tough decision. I don't think it would be too tough for me. It'd be simple. You got him. You know where he is. Go get him. Boom.
Right.
I might have done it differently. I might have just have fired a drone missile at the house and ended it that way. Rather than risk American lives. But we needed proof. And why was he so chicken to show us the pictures of a dead bin Laden? Why? All right, yeah. Sherry, God bless you. And listen, the snowflakes. Look, I'm a little worried more about what James O'Keefe was describing earlier, and we'll show on TV tonight. I'm a little worried about how extreme these people are and what they might do and what they're capable of. You have a lot of innocent people showing up in Washington this week, and they're talking about dropping uric acid to dispense the masses and unleash hell and worse. We'll find out what the worse is tomorrow. It's pretty scary what we played today. All right, back to our phones. Tom is in Chicago in Illinois. Tom, welcome to the Sean Hannity Show, and thanks for listening to The Answer. What's going on, sir?
Hi, Sean. Look, I'm a Chicago police officer, and, we hear a lot about the Ferguson effect and from politicians and lawyers all talking about it, but from somebody who's actually out here doing this, I can tell you that with Obama being the president, and the way he's come out at us and said that we're all racist primarily and that it's our fault that the rise in homicide, I can't blame anybody for wanting to be a police officer nowadays. We're the target. The rise against the violence against police officers is overwhelming now. Hopefully when Trump gets in, things will change, but I don't know if he'll have the effect that he will on local law enforcement as he would have the authority on the federal level.
Well, I got to tell you something. I don't know. I've got to imagine that the FBI, the Secret Service, and law enforcement are going to be out in such force, I hope and pray, that they're doing their job and that they'll keep all these people, including myself, that will be descending on Washington, D.C. or later this week, safe. And it's not about me. It's about them. These people ought to have the right to enjoy the election of the person that they voted for without fear of some type of disruption or terrorist activity. It's a little scary. These are really, really, really challenging times just dealing with radical Islam. Now we're talking about snowflake, radical terrorists, domestic terrorists, planning, plotting, and scheming, whatever it is they're plotting and scheming. It's scary.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why, God bless Donald Trump for becoming president. He's going to hopefully make us all a lot safer out here. It's just very difficult to try and let people understand the difficulties that are just commonly going out on the streets all over the United States.
Yeah. Well, listen, Tom, I appreciate you telling us all about this. There's absolutely a chilling impact on law enforcement. They're afraid to do their job. It is real, I know, because I know a lot of law enforcement people. All right, let's go to – oh, thank you, by the way, Tom, for all you do. Let's go to our busy phones. Mike is in Pensacola, Florida, on the Sean Hannity Show. Happy Monday. Mike, glad you called.
Hey, Sean, thanks for taking my call. I got a lot in common with your callers today. Your first caller – her birthday's Wednesday, and mine's Wednesday. And your last caller is a Chicago cop, and I'm a retired police officer in Pensacola, Florida. I did almost 30 years.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for you. Thank you for your service, and we appreciate all you do.
Thank you, sir. The main reason I called is I heard on Friday, which happened to be the year anniversary when Donald Trump made his campaign stop here in Pensacola, and I had the pleasure to get to go see him, and heard about the LL Bean thing, to boycott them. And being from Florida, I've thought of that more of a cold weather type store. I have never purchased a thing in my life from them, but I immediately got online and spent $150, bought a pair of shoes, bought a knife, just junk.
I want to get some of that stuff, too. I want to get, Linda, will you go online and use my credit card and buy me a bunch of stuff?
Well, I go online and use your credit card to buy you a bunch of stuff?
I'll tell you what. Yeah, why don't you buy, like, a pair of those really cool shoes they got on LL Bean? You know the ones I'm talking about, like the two-tone things for winter? Why don't you get all of us a pair, everyone on the staff?
So you're asking me to shop with your credit card and buy things for people.
You already have my credit card number, and you already buy stuff all the time on my credit card.
I just want to have it on record that you're asking me to shop with
how many times have you shopped with my credit card already? How many years have you had my credit card?
Many, many years.
Okay, and how often have I ever checked my credit card bill?
Never.
And what would be the odds that you could get away with this for years?
But I would never do that.
Well, listen, if you did,
we're Republicans.
Just
we don't
give me
do
2 weeks.
nothing.
Just give me 2 weeks notice. I'll let you have 2 free weeks, and then I'll report it and say I had no idea. And I'll just go on the trip of your life.
You would never do that, would you?
No, I'm just having fun with you.
Thank you, Mike. We will.
You know how many people have my credit card number that work for me? That's how much I trust the people that work for me. Now, some people may think that's dumb, but whatever.
Are you going to be there in Washington? I thought I heard.
Yeah, we'll be broadcasting Thursday and Friday, and next week we'll be down there as well. Okay.
Well, I'm flying up there myself. I'll be there Thursday, just in case that fella at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue needing help packing that moving van. I'm going to get there Thursday night.
Well, I think that's a great. Listen, if Obama needs help, I'll send you a Trump pen too, by the way. But if Obama needs help packing the trucks, I'll be glad to offer my services, and I'll pay for beer for everybody who's working on the truck.
I'll be there.
All right, man.
Wait, I'm so excited. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Another Mike, this one in Palm Beach Gardens. Mike, how are you down in Florida? Glad you called.
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. What's happening?
First-time caller.
Oh, welcome aboard, sir.
Appreciate it. Just getting tired of the CNN media just completely lost touch with the everyday man. I mean, we got Trump here demonized from the day he puts his hat in the ring, and now you got people in Carrier, 1,000 people with jobs saved. People at Ford, jobs saved. People with Chrysler, jobs saved. Even if they voted Clinton, they're definitely thanking God that Trump's in office right now. And it just seems like anytime you do anything regarding Trump, you are racist, you're Satan. It's despicable, Sean.
Listen, I've been called every name in the book, so I'm kind of used to it. I'm a professional at accepting name calling. There's nothing anybody can say about me, and Linda will attest to this, because Linda hands me these articles. Look at what they said about you. Look at this. And I'm like, yeah, so what? I'm like, throw it out. And I'm like, do you want me to bash him on Twitter and have some fun with it? That's what I say. And for me, it's just fun and entertainment when I'm in a Twitter fight. You know, like the liberal Joe. I love smashing him last week. I pounded on him. And you were loving every minute of it. And when I came in, you all started cheering, for crying out loud. And you're not the only people. All my TV staff went nuts, too. I'm like, well, he's a waste of my time, to be honest. You know, but I'm really good at fighting, and I'm not going to take crap for him or anybody else. Look, don't worry what other people think about you in your life. And the media has lost touch with everyday Americans, the people out of work, in poverty, and on food stamps. To me, the only motivation I have for government now is to get back to serving the people. You know, if you're a public servant, you serve people. That's what you're supposed to do. And so my advice is that you ignore the critics, ignore those that will never like you, always stand up for you, what your belief system is. And, you know, if we do the right thing, I think we'll be able to bring a lot of people around our way of thinking, because I believe conservatism works at a very high level. And I think that's what we need now more than ever. Anyway, Mike, all the best to you in Florida. It's cold up here. I'm glad you're enjoying the sunny weather down there.
This